get to watch it go up today. So let's keep our fingers crossed. Hope the weather clears. And you know, it is Florida, so wait 5 minutes, right? And the weather.
Absolutely.
So wanted to talk to you a little bit about what we're calling the multi-user spaceport here at Kennedy Space Center. So how many times have you heard that today? A bunch? None?
None.
Oh, great. All right, good. Excellent. Then I can tell you something maybe you hadn't heard yet. So I'd like to take folks from the Wayback Machine to 2010. Kennedy
What a
Space
year.
So in 2010, we were still flying shuttle at that point in time. We had a program called Constellation, and in February of 2010, that program was canceled and shuttle was winding down. So at Kennedy Space Center, our job of launching had pretty much was going away, and our follow-on job of launching was now gone. So prior to that, we were already doing planning to try to determine how we were going to be as a center after shuttle was done. Constellation obviously was going to be a big part of our, was planning to be a big part of our center efforts here, but it was not going to utilize all the facilities we had here at Kennedy Space Center at that point in time. So we had to take a look at what we were going to do and how we were going to do it. So even prior to Constellation being set up, we were looking at how we were going to follow on the shuttle program at Kennedy. And so we looked at, and the National Space Policy kind of drove us to what we call the multi-user spaceport, which says we can't just focus on government programs. At the time it was shuttle only, and then it was going to be Constellation. We can't just focus on that, especially with commercial efforts coming online hard at that point with SpaceX. And we said, you know, there has to be a future for commercial at Kennedy Space Center. So we began the process of figuring out how we were going to make that happen. And so I fast forward to today, and I'll back up and kind of go through the process. But today at Kennedy, just kind of highlight where we've gone to since February of 2010. We have a number of commercial companies operating here, including 4 companies that are doing human spaceflight operations and development here at Kennedy Space Center. So if you think about that,
It hasn't been sponsored.
does it?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. No,
Can you hear me in the back, or do you need the microphone?
You don't need to.
You guys good in the back? Can you hear me?
Yeah.
All right, I'm gonna set that down. It's irritating me. So, in the history of human spaceflight, only 3 countries have ever flown to space: United States, Russia, and China. And here at Kennedy Space Center today, we have 4 separate companies developing human spaceflight capabilities. You've got SpaceX with the Dragon 2, Boeing CST-100 Starliner, Blue Origin now with their New Glenn vehicle and their orbital launch plans, and of course Orion being built by Lockheed Martin under a NASA contract for deep space exploration. So we like to say we've really become the epicenter of human spaceflight in the world here at Kennedy because we have so much going on here. In addition, we have, if you've seen the Boeing building, now it used to be Orbiter Processing Facility Bay 3. That's doing now the CST-100 construction in the Operations and Checkout building, which was built for Apollo program, was actually retrofitted by the state of Florida to house the Orion construction and operations. So that work's going on there. Of course, SpaceX, you'll see that, knock on wood, a little later today, launching. You'll see the effects of, or the efforts, the results of their efforts of redeveloping Launch Complex 39B. And then eventually you'll see Boeing launching off of Launch Complex 41 off of an Atlas vehicle. So again, a lot of exciting things that have gone on here over the last 6 years take us from what was at one time a government-centric, government-only operation to one that has welcomed and found great partners in a number of different commercial companies to do operations here at Kennedy Space Center. The other exciting thing is we are having manufacturing of a launch vehicle in Exploration Park, which is just outside the gates on Kennedy Space Center property. So if you have a chance, if you want to see what a massive building looks like under construction, if you go out Space Commerce Way at some point over the next couple of days, while you're here, just look at that Blue Origin building. It's massive, and that they plan on being actually up and running by the end of the year and manufacturing launch vehicles from there. So it's really exciting. And also in Exploration Park, a company called OneWeb is now going to build satellites here at Kennedy Space Center as well. So shows the diversification that we've gone through here at the center, all the different things that we're supporting, and the exciting ways in which they're supporting it. So A lot of things, a lot of separate and distinct activities going on here. A lot of effort has gone into creating an environment here that allows us to welcome in commercial companies and allow them to operate in a way in which they would operate whether they were in Titusville or Texas or anywhere else. So creating that environment for them was also important for us to not embark our safety rules on them so that they could operate at the speed and desirements of commercial and not have to be overly burdened by us. So that's kind of where we've come in those 7 years. A lot of times people ask me, well, where did you expect to be by this point? And to be perfectly honest, when we kind of laid out our planning to where we thought we would be now versus where we are now, we thought we might be at in about the 2025 time frame if a lot of good things and a lot of good luck happen. So we've actually gotten a lot better than what we thought we would just by a lot of positive things happening here and allowing us to work in that way. So that's kind of the overview of the commercial or the multi-user spaceport. Y'all have any questions about anything in particular that we've done here, how we're doing it? Yes, ma'am.
So with the private companies coming in, when Director Lightfoot was here before, he said that KFC was very much a family feel. With the new companies coming in, does that cause a culture shift for you all, or are they learning to adapt to your way of approaching space?
So did everybody hear the question? Yeah, so the really, I would say, I think we as a center have more adapted. We're coexisting is probably the best way of saying it, and that's not in a bad way. I think there's a lot of positive. We're learning from each other in all the ways in which we do things, and so but again, creating these environments or these enclaves, commercial operating zones as we call them, that allows them to operate at the kind of their speed and what they want to do and how they want to do it. That has given them an environment. We've got a great environment here to work within because we have a lot of space that allows them to operate. So the reason Kennedy Space Center exists and the size that it is because when we launch rockets, we want to keep the public safe. And by keeping the public safe usually means keeping them away to the maximum extent possible. And that's not meant in a bad way, it's just for their safety. So being in this area and allowing them to operate and working in this way, I think has given us each opportunities to learn from each other, and I think it's an addition to the family. It's kind of like having somebody marry in and a different way of existing, and it's all great because you're all trying to do the same thing, which is get things and people to space, and again, it's exciting to watch. So being able to see another first coming off of Launch Complex 39A, which we did a few months ago with the first commercial launch off of 39A, was a great milestone for us in the multi-user spaceport. So when you think of the first from 39A, first moon launch 39A, first shuttle launch 39A, and the first KSC commercial launch was 39A as well. So a lot of history on 39A, and it's just going to keep building because most likely, assuming schedules hold, one of the first commercial human launches will come off of 39A as well. So certainly come from KSC property, either for 41 or 39A. So it's a neat time to be here and watch what's happening with the space industry here. Yes, ma'am.
I didn't catch what you said you were going to do with 39B.
39B, I didn't say what we're going to do with 39B, so that's why. The question is, what are we going to do with 39B? 39B is actually under construction right now, and it's actually finishing up construction right now for Space Launch System. So Space Launch System is the NASA deep space vehicle that's being built. It's derived from shuttle-based components, solid rocket motors, and the core stage, which looks a lot like an extended external tank from the shuttle days. And that's where we will be flying the NASA deep space missions from.
And the Orion and stuff.
The Orion, that's right, that's part of that. So Orion will launch on top of the Space Launch System to go to space. And it's also designed as a multi-user pad. So we have another company that's interested in coming in and using 39B as a commercial launch platform. So, a lot of neat things happening here to help us become and expand that multi-user spaceport. Yes.
So, I guess just a stupid question, but why is it 39? Like, why isn't it 1? Why isn't it?
So why is it 39? So if you look at the map of Cape Canaveral Air Force Station, Kennedy Space Center, all the launch pads basically start numbering down low on the south end of Cape Canaveral Air Force Station. And to be honest with you, I don't know how things ultimately got numbered. Basically, they started off at some point, I'm sure, with number 1 way down the south end, and slowly as it worked north, the numbers got bigger and the launch pads got bigger. I think just because of the growth of the vehicles during the 50s and 60s, certainly. And basically, you know, as they added a new launch pad, they incremented by 1. Some of the launch pads are missile silos, some of them are actual launch pads, you know, above ground launch pads, things like that.
So,
But
so there were 38
30,
other-
39, 40, yeah,
Okay.
we're up to 49 now, to be perfectly
Oh, okay.
honest, as a number. So, but somewhere, if you look at the history of, you know, Cape Canaveral Air Force Station, Kennedy Space Center, there should be 49 locations that show a launch pad of some kind at some point. Yes.
So where's 50 going
Where's 50 going to be?
to be? How big is it going to be?
That's a great question. We don't know. Right now we have 2 launch sites that are open, 48 and 49 on KSC property. One is south of 39A. The other is north of 39B, and those are available for commercial development. So if somebody were to want to come in here and build a launch pad, we could put those there. Yes?
Is there any concern of too much privatization of the space industry?
Is there concern of too much privatization of the space industry? No, not at all. Again, we have different roles, different missions. The private companies want to do things that make money. NASA is going to do things that will further, you know, the knowledge of humankind. Not to sound too grand, but that's really what we've done throughout the history of NASA. And so exploring deep space is not a moneymaker for a commercial entity. Flying to low Earth orbit, bringing satellites, doing the things that SpaceX and ULA are doing right now, and Blue eventually wants to do. Those are the money makers for these companies. Deep space exploration, it's really technology development and gaining some kind of understanding of the deep space environments. That's really kind of what we do. We do it in conjunction with private companies. So, you know, we're still partnered and working together, but no, there's no concern at all about that. Yes.
So as kind of a follow-up question, do you think there is a point in which private companies will become interested in asteroid mining?
Do I think there's a point which private companies become interested in asteroid mining? I'm sure that's already happening. I'm not privy to that. I've read articles that there are companies that are interested in doing that, but I don't have any personal knowledge of that. All I know is what I read, and there seems to be that interest out there. Yes, ma'am.
Talking about the companies that you said that are releasing land here, like the ones that are doing deep exploration as well as ones that aren't, like ones that have been doing express, are they just leasing facilities or is there knowledge transfer between NASA and those companies?
It's a little bit of both. I think for the most part, they're leasing facilities, but we are working with these companies as they are developing their technologies and transferring technologies that we've developed to them, providing assistance in the areas of testing, certainly some knowledge transfer that we have here. So there's no giant wall between us that says all we're doing is doing this. There's a lot of back and forth and give and take with these companies to help them to build their businesses as much as it helps us to learn new ways of doing things. Yes?
Do you ever see, NASA turning away any commercial companies or, saying like, oh, sorry, you're not going to launch up for our launch pad?
Do I see that happening? No. I mean, the only reason that might ever happen is if we have a capacity issue. But I mean, right now, the doors are open. Like I said, we have 2 available launch sites for commercial development, and we're looking for more business. So, more partnerships. Yes, ma'am.
So as social media people move here to spread the word of what you guys are doing,
Uh-huh.
what's something you wish more people knew about what you're doing here or about NASA?
I think just probably the biggest thing that is that we are doing so much with commercial, with government space flight, that there's still a lot of activity occurring here and will be a lot more over the next few years. I think there was a lot of misconceptions when the shuttle program ended that Kennedy Space Center had closed. It's obviously not the case. We have certainly changed a lot, and I think that's probably the biggest message, is that our center management went in and said, look, we can't keep doing things the same way we did them for 50 years. And so we made a concerted effort to change culture here, and it has borne fruit. Looking at SpaceX launching off of a historic launch pad like 39A, you know, probably 10 years ago, you'd have been dragged out back and beaten if you'd have made a suggestion like that. But, you know, seeing it happening and watching and having SpaceX be an active partner here, them being excited about launching, us being excited about them launching, that's probably the biggest message that we have, and more to come. She had a question. You had a question also?
Yes,
Yeah.
when you, sorry, when you were talking about not putting people away,
Mm-hmm.
are there safety guidelines that they have to prove that they are following to avoid endangering people that?
So that's a great question because, you know, NASA, one of our core values is safety. But what we chose to do was to not put our safety requirements on these companies when they came in. What they have a number of federal laws. Probably the biggest one from a safety perspective is OSHA, and so what we ask them to do is follow those laws. And the other thing we ask them to do is, if you're going to do something hazardous like a launch, you have to let us know so that we can ensure the safety of the public. And the public, in the eyes of the FAA, who actually licenses these launches coming off of 39A, is you and I. All right, so everybody here that's not actively a part of the SpaceX effort, mainly SpaceX employees, are considered public. So we have to ensure that safety. Mr. Cabana and Ms. Petros, as Center Director, Deputy Center Director, have to ensure that the people on Kennedy Space Center are safe during these kinds of operations. So they coordinate with us, and that's what we ask them to do, is to ensure that when they have a launch or test fire or anything like that, that, you know, the public is kept away from that pad to the extent where they need to keep them safe. So, yes, sir.
What is your biggest hope for the future of the Kennedy Space Center?
Biggest hope is just to keep it seen growing and expanding and diversifying, because again, what we're doing right now is the right thing to do. It's been exciting to watch, and seeing more and more companies come in and work with us and launch space is I think probably our biggest hope right now.
Is there anything specific you'd like to have added, like a specific type of building or anything, or just kind of see what comes with the new developments?
Right now, we have a notice of availability open, which basically says that, you know, if you're an aerospace company or research and development or something like that, you can come ask for land here at Kennedy Space Center to do business. And if it fits within the guidelines of what we do at NASA, we'll welcome that in. You know, not to sound too extreme, but if Joe's Furniture Company shows up and says we want 50 acres to put a furniture factory in, no, it's not, you know, there's plenty of land elsewhere to do that. But if you're wanting to build a rocket or launch a rocket or build a satellite, you know, that's what we're here for at Kennedy Space Center. And please come and have fun and do some business here. Any other questions? Yes, sir.
Good old math.
You can't set me up like that, right?
So I just spent like 45 minutes listening to podcasts on sending signals into deep space, looking for intelligent life. Is any of that happening here, or is that or any facilities at NASA around the country doing that?
I don't know the answer to your question. I really is. As far as I know, it's not happening here, but I mean, I don't know for sure. I know there are efforts going, radio telescopes, listening, sometimes sending. You know, who knows? But we're not. That's not what we do here, Kennedy.
Is that all private stuff?
I don't know. I'm probably saying more than I'm really knowledgeable about, so I probably need to quit talking. So.
Fair enough.
But the real answer to your question is I don't know what NASA's got going in that area, but it's a great question. Yes, ma'am.
When you decided to work with rockets?
That's a great question. So, long story short, my dad is a veteran of NASA at Marshall Space Flight Center. So he came, he helped design Saturn I first stage and booster components for shuttle, and so, you know, looked like a fun thing to do, and it has been. It's been a great career. You know, I can't. It's just been fun. You know, working for NASA, I've been able to do a lot of different things. Anywhere from software development to manufacturing solid rocket boosters, now to creating partnerships with private companies at the Kennedy Space Center. So it's been fantastic, and so.
Do you ever miss the hands-on mechanical stuff?
you always miss that, right? You know? But it's fun, again, watching, being able to be a part of a culture change like what we've been able to do here at Kennedy Space Center has been really pretty tremendous, and I think, there's a lot of people here at Kennedy that have worked really hard to allow us to get where we are here today, and so to be a part of that's really been pretty darn exciting, and but yeah, you always miss putting your hands on hardware, no doubt about it. So, yes, sir.
So, as a multi-use spaceport, do you see it being more open to the public in the future as well, not just like commercial entities, but we got to tour the VAB yesterday, and that's not a public tour. Is that something that you may consider?
So, long story short, on that one, we worked with the Delaware North as our concessionaire at the Kennedy Visitor Center. So that's the public's entree into the center. The bus tours are coming out of there. There's a great education component to what they do there. You see the history at the Visitor Center. In addition, they've done a great job of showcasing the future as well. So because these are all operational facilities, what we can't do is have people just drive around on center and pop up to the front of the VAB and knock on the door and, hey, what's going on? Because there's hazardous operations occurring in there at times. And so it's, from a security perspective, we have to keep the center secure, and so we do that by having Delaware North kind of act as that gatekeeper of the public into the center. You still get a lot of great access through the Delaware North folks and the tours that they offer there, and you drive pretty much throughout the entire center, including Cape Canaveral Air Force Station. See the history and sprinkled in with the future at the same time. So that's probably all it will ever be. Yeah.
Problems keep you up at night.
Oh man.
Jeez.
No.
What's that?
You keep the problems up at night.
Yeah, so
That's
sure,
the answer.
we'll go with that. I think just making sure that we are being the right kind of supportive environment that we need to be for not only commercial but also our NASA programs, and making sure that everybody can coexist here properly, I think is probably the biggest worry that we have, And so, but we have a great operations organization here that's managing that and making sure that all of the schedules are coordinated so that somebody's not trying to do something that interferes with somebody else or could harm somebody else. And so I think, it's all well managed, and I sleep pretty well. So.
One last question.
Well, good.
Well, same question I asked Mr. Whitefoot earlier. Where did you go to school and what was your major?
Okay, good, because I won't get that answer wrong. So I went to, my next question is, what did he say? So I went to the University of Alabama in Huntsville, which is actually a satellite campus of where he went to school at, and I majored in electrical engineering, and then I ended up getting my master's degree in computer science from Florida Tech here locally. And so, yeah, so that was quick knowledge.
I was asking if you have any advice for a middle or high school student at A&C, what should they do?
Well, so the easy answer is study hard. So there's not one particular degree that you have to have in order to come in to work at NASA. That's a neat thing about being here too. And certainly one of the things you'd think of is, NASA's an engineering organization. You can only be an engineer to work here. It helps. But we also have business majors. We have folks that do public affairs, so communications majors. So all kinds of different folks come in here and provide the environment that we have. Whatever you do, you got to have good grades. Thank God that requirement went in when I graduated. But NASA has a pretty high requirement for its graduates, and so having a technical degree makes it easier because we have more engineers than anybody else. But certainly, like I said, you got to have good grades and have some kind of relevant degree like accounting, business management, communications, engineering. Something like that. There's not one particular kind of engineer computer science is another one. If you're interested in computers, we have obviously computers are important to what it is we do. Computers are going to control this launch today. We have a lot of computer efforts going on here, and so all that stuff. So
Thank you.
yes.
What would you say to the conspiracy theories like my cousin who denied the moon landing?
Really gonna finish up with that one?
You want to see bad words, just go for it.
I can't have people that just want to ignore facts. I think that's what it boils down to. You know, there's plenty of evidence that we went to the moon and all the things, great things that NASA has done. And if somebody chooses to ignore all that, I can't help it. You know, all you can do is point to what we've done and see the great men and women that have provided the basis for making that happen over the last 60 years of NASA being NASA. And so we've done a lot of cool things. We're going to continue to do some really cool things. And if somebody chooses to believe it or not, you know, that's up to them. You know, so.
All right, guys, let's give them a round of applause.